You know that there is a version of success that looks very clean from the outside with the right degree, the right company, step one, two, and three, followed by your success. And then, and then there is a real version. The version where you're figuring it out as you go, where you are the only woman in the room and you show up anyway, where you do not have a mentor who looks like you, a blueprint that fits you, or a guarantee that any of it is going to work. And you do it anyway. This is the version we talk about on Space Shastra. And today's guest is living that version in one of the most complex, most demanding, and most exciting industries in the world. Welcome to Space Shastra, the podcast by She in Space, where we bring you the real stories, the real journey, and the honest truth about what it takes to build a life in space industry. I am your host, Srushti Patil, a space biologist, astronaut candidate, and founder of She in Space. And today, and for today's conversation, we have with us Prakriti Prakash. She is in her 20s, sitting in Bangalore right now, building the control system, the actual brain of aerospace vehicle at Paninian Aerospace. She has done critical work at DRDO, the India's most prestigious defense research organizations. She specializes in UAV systems, hardware in the loop testing, digital twin platform, and if you do not know what those mean yet, trust me, by the end of this conversation, you will. And but that's not even the most remarkable thing about her. The most remarkable thing is she is Karnataka's first female astronaut, meaning she has already simulated living and working in space. She has already done what most people only dream of. So, Prakriti, welcome to Space Shastra podcast. I'm so happy to have you with us today.
Hi, I'm very glad to be here in Shri in Space for this podcast. And yeah, nice to meet you too, Shruti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So honestly, I have been following your journey, Prakriti, on Instagram and social media. And the way you document your life, the project, the internship opportunities, it feels so real, inspiring, motivating, especially for the young kids who really want to step in space industry. So before we talk about, aerospace and analog astronauts, can you just please describe yourself in few words, like not your title, not your work, just you as a human being, where you come from and where did you grow? What was the moment where, first you realized where you really wanted, to be in aerospace industry?
Yeah, Shruti. Yeah, as you know, myself is Prakriti Prakash. And without title, I can say I'm a very curious and resilient person. Always been, in the curious state to learn something and know something. That is, for example, when I started the journey in the space, like I was very curious, like why this is happening in the space and why people are, why do we need to travel space? Why do we need to study all this regarding the space? So that is where I can say I'm more a curious person and resilient person. And I can also say that this is how my journey started actually. And along with that, I started, basically I'm from Karnataka, a remote place in Karnataka. You can you can say that our own village is called Kachigere. So, as you know, people from here, I don't think they'll know about space. They'll be knowing this from the astrology thing, but they never know about this using the science field. So that's where I came from. So yeah, even when my dad says everyone in the village that my daughter is going to be an analog astronaut, they'll be like, who, what is that analog astronaut and what they will do. So that's where I came from. So yeah, that's how my journey started, and that's who am I without my title.
That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and what your dad says. I think so. You are Karnataka's first female analog astronaut, and I want to sit with that for a second because this title carries a lot of weight. When you receive it, when you first heard that, what did it feels like, and did you ever expect to be the first?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the first Karnataka's female analog astronaut. So I never started this to, being a first analog astronaut. So throughout the journey, that journey gave me this title. So I just started with the, curiosity and, the willingness to learn something through this, incubation centers and analog astronaut trainings, what they will. I was very curious that what actually astronauts do in the place, like where incubations kind of places. So that's where it's all started. So I can say throughout my journey, that title that I which I gained, it's from my journey, not for the, I never wanted to being that first in that. So the journey gave me that title.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, that's great. So the next question I would like to ask is um, uh, consider this kind of like a personal questions because engineering in India, especially aerospace industry or the domain itself, it can be an environment where young women feel that they need to prove themselves twice as hard as the other counterpart to taken them seriously. Was that your experience, or is it totally the opposite from the real scenarios or what people say?
Yeah, as you mentioned, women in space. When I started, like I already have an exposure to women in technology. As you know that women in
Mhm.
technology, it's a initiative from the Google. So they already been in the place in the market, and they started their programs, webinars to aware the young girls to to be in the technological field. So that's where like I can say that women in space, more than women in space, women in technology led me to this field, I can say. So that was so excited field, that oh, women in technology, so they are doing different webinars, and they're teaching young mind women to join the technological field. So I can say now, as India is also booming in every different technology, and women in all the field, I can say. From from agricultural field and small scale business to into the space. So women empowerment is that power now. It's have that much of power now. So yeah, when I started, I was not facing any discrimination. Only women should do this kind of work, and men should do this kind of work. So I can say that already many of the in the many of the field, women already got her exposure. So yeah, there is no issue like women in space and all in the India that I faced.
That's incredible. I think this is something incredibly powerful when you don't feel that way. You have already, the power to move ahead, to work in industry, especially in STEM or the technology field. The level of, for this, the level of technical rigor or confidence that you built through this journey, it's definitely unshakable. And I think you carry that into each room whenever you move ahead while doing this. So let's talk about, the actual work, because I think aerospace control system engineer, this sounds really impressive, but most people have absolutely no idea what that means, like in practice. So if you can walk us through it, what does your actual work day look like at your company?
Yes, Shruti. I'm an control system engineer, aerospace control system engineer. I usually work with UAVs, sensors, and actuators. As you know, sensors in the field, sensors are needed for the any aerospace systems or avionics systems, and actuator should need it for the dynamic movements and integration of that. I'm also working in the field of IVHM is an integrated vehicle field monitorization. It's like a we should need a health monitorization system to track the health of a particular avionics system or aircraft, so that in future we don't have to face any faults of a particular avionics system or any tragedy accident to that aircraft system. So that's why for the prognostic and diagnostic changes of the particular aircraft, we need to track its health. So that's, I think it's a very important field currently. So yeah, currently I'm working on that, both R&D, and after that I'm also in the field of actuators. I can say we are working on a Moog actuator. Moog actuator is like a centralized actuator. For example, for any systems, there will be like a wings and fins will be there. So for particularly missiles and the things for the avionics system, so for the wings and fins we need a centralized control system.
Mhm.
So for that we have been looking into Moog's control system. So that's also very excited field to be work on. So yeah, now currently I'm also working on that actuation systems, control centralized control systems, and yeah, writing algorithms for the control laws and developing them and testing them on the tools like Simulink and MATLAB and Xcos. So this kind of work currently I'm looking into. And after that also they're like digital twin. Digital twin also being a part of my role. So I'm also working on the digital twins. It's like a, if you have a one physical system and then you need a one software kind of system to connect both the things, so that's called the digital system to track the changes of a particular avionics system or aerospace system on ground. So that's where digital twins comes. So yeah, these are all the field that currently which I'm working on, and integrated to this also being a part of national instrument team, where they will provide you the real hardware to test on. For example, they'll give some NI hardware kind of hardwares. So we need to test our fault detection or sensor faults and many more techniques into, we need to feed into that particular hardware, and we need to get the output from that. So we need to track the output and we need to feed into the AI, and AI will understand, and ML will write its own codes, and it will understand the whole process, and it will take its own decision. So yeah, this is where my journey start, from hardware to sensors, actuators, and it will reach at the point of AI ML.
That that's incredible. I think you are into the nervous system of vehicles, that I must say. I love that you mentioned what happened when things, go as planned, because that actually is the most engineering part, isn't it? When detect and plan for failures, it is as important as when you are planning for success. When it comes to the technical part and maintaining the health of the instrument itself to get the final success. So that's really interesting. I hear that you mentioned about you specialize in hardware in the loop testing, or HIL, right? So can you explain what is that, like, in a
Yeah.
simple possible way? Because I think this is something our student audience needs to understand, especially those who want to go into, aerospace system.
Yeah, Shruti. When I mentioned HAL, like hardware in loop, as I mentioned you before, that we are collaborating with NI, National Instrument. Basically, National Instrument give the hardware systems. Hardware in loop comes like you have a software codes with you, where you are wrote your own algorithms and wrote your own logic to control that faults, particularly for sensors, actuator, engine faults, to detect the engine faults. So you wrote the overall algorithms. You already have a overall algorithm with you, so it's like a software. So now you have to test whether it will applicable in the hardware, whether it will work when we feed into the hardware. So for that, you don't need a particular system with you. For example, you don't need a physical sensor with you to test those logic into feed into your particular hardware. So where in a particular physical model for you, which will actually act as a sensor.
Mhm.
So that is where hardware comes. So you test with your software. So hardware in loop happens like this: testing on a particular hardware, which is not a physical product. It's a hardware which will act the same as the original physical product. So that is where hardware in loop comes. So you'll just feed into your software codes into that hardware, and you'll test it on that hardware, because in that particular hardware, it will also be integrated with different things. If you want temperature sensor, that one particular NI box, I can say some 22158, some particular parts of a NI one cards, they'll you can say PXI cards. So those PXI cards, it will be feeding, they'll be having temperature sensor, pressure sensors, and different kind of sensor in one particular card. So that you can just inject that card to that particular PXI system, and inject your code with in to that hardware system through the software. Software means they will also provide some software to you, like a LabVIEW kind of things. So you need to plug into your particular uh, uh, desktop that you are working on. So you need to simulate according to that. So injecting the signals, it will give the power to your this thing, and it will you will inject and you will modulate the signals. I need this frequency should be this, and I need the time lapse should be this. So you can just modulate using your software to that hardware. So that's where you're injecting your signals and to check its behavior, and you can note down the output. So that's where hardware in loop comes. So this is the whole process which I explained you. It comes under the hardware in loop.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for explaining this in a very detailed manner. But I think coming from as a biologist, even I got to know, understand this technology, and it's really impressive and interesting. I know that while performing it, it's a massive task. It's a massive technical work there. But it's really essential to create those simulation and test it while creating a safe space for the overall success, and check this repeatedly. I
Yeah.
also know that you already mentioned about digital twin, but we would love to understand more about this digital twin platform, because this is a concept that is really becoming huge across aerospace and space industry itself. But again, most students do not really understand what it means, like practically. What is digital twin and why does it matter?
Shruti, because it's a digital twin, it's not so much complicated, but it's just a new concept in the aerospace field. Because digital twin already been there in the medical field and many other field, industrial field, automation field. but in aerospace I think it's a new, but in in the western it's already been implemented, but in India it's now, since AI and ML and aerospace field is also booming, so we're just adapting those technology into our field. So yeah, digital twin, I will give you one example so that you can understand it very, it will be very viable for you. For example, you have an engine with you, and there will be a gearbox with the engine, for example. So the gearbox side of an engine, it is totally, the place where for example, it's a very remote area, so that you don't have any sensor or anything to, place near to that place, because it's very high temperature area or very remote area. So you can't, take the or track the data, like sensing data from that, like what's the temperature and what's the pressure. You can't, track those without using sensors, because now you have a problem that you can't put the sensors there because it's that remote area. So what you will do, you will place some temperature sensors and different kind of sensors near to that place, near to that remote place, and will start, taking data from that, so that you'll get some data near to that place, and you'll, integrate all the data, and you'll feed into the ML, and it will, predict the what will be the condition over there. So that is where the digital twin concept comes. So that hardware is there, and the software is also with you. You can also have a dashboard with you to track, because sometimes engine will be on the ground, because the engine will be in the aircraft and will be on the ground, and sometimes it will be on the air. So that is where, the engine will be on the air, so you can't, go and check and take the data. For that you need a dashboard to understand its all algorithms, the inputs and the outputs, and what's happening with the condition of that particular engine, whether it's in the normal or it's in danger, or, we need to, have some other scrutiny level to take that to another scrutiny level. So this is how process comes. So that is where digital twin comes. So where you place nothing in the remote area, and you place something near to that, that engine area, and you'll track the all the information from that, and you'll analyze and you'll detect the output. So this is how digital twin works. It's so deep actually, the concept, and you need so many scenarios to understand it, because it's have different perspective on it, which I said now it's another perspective, and also gave some one example to you. So that is how digital twin works. So it's like, in the name itself it's showing digital twins. We have a twin of a particular system with our ad, and we can take the data from that.
Wow, this is interesting. Wow, this is interesting indeed. I think that's why digital twin are really becoming one of the most important technologies in modern
Yes.
aerospace industry. So, you cannot go and fix something that is in orbit, but you do have that ability to know what exactly is happening inside a vehicle, and you even don't have to touch it. But that's a superpower that digital twin, bring in for for every enthusiast, and maintaining those technical decisions, it helps there. So yeah, nice. Let's talk about DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization. You did your internship at DRDO LRDE, which is one of the most prestigious and also most, restricted research environment in India that we know. So, what was the experience like there? And yeah, if you can tell us about, what did it teach you that no university courses could?
Yeah, Shruti, as you mentioned, I completed my internship at the LIDO, DRDO, one of the most, research, very strong research center in India, I can say. So that's a very good experience that I have in that particular LIDO center. It's basically for the, radar technology research R&D center. There, I worked on the synthetic aperture radars, particularly 3D projection of that synthetic aperture radar. So where we worked on the radar systems. Actually, there is one center there. So there is one particular room for that, to track the live radar systems, how they will work. You know what is radar? If you send some particular temperature curve wave to that particular object, to track its the position, and to track its speed, like how it will hit or particular uh, area from the enemy, the object. So that is where it will track that enemy object. For that we need a radar. So for that, there will be different radars, will like normal radars, synthetic aperture radars will come. So in these radars we wrote one algorithm to to check the 3D projections of the particular object. So you can see the 3D projection of the particular object, not just the wave will go, the thermo wave will go, and it will just detect it's just an object. So instead of that, we wrote an algorithm to check it's a 3D, whether it's a particularly missile, or it's just a something random moving object, black object. Because black sync object will comes to, that's where this rays will go and absorb the heat. So that's how it's happening. So it's happened. So yeah, we wrote one algorithm to see the 3D projection of that particular object of a radar. So the algorithm's already there, but we just developed some part of that 3D object to see particularly visible 3D object of a particular a moving object.
Okay. I think real outcomes really depend on how you go on the field or directly work apart from the classroom textbook, and
Yeah.
we started working on field on the technology, or if you can grab those component and start working on it, that really brings a real practical feasible industrial experiences. And the experience at DRDO is something we can say that simply cannot be replaced by any textbook or any course that anyone could have. So that's really incredible. Now, I really,
Yeah.
yes, you,
Yeah, actually we implemented that theoretical part what we learned in my back then in my college, that electronics and communication. Actually I did my internship when I was in my last year of engineering.
Mhm.
So we got an opportunity to work with the scientists, the top grade scientists, like scientist G and scientist F graded scientist in the LRDA DRDO. We actually implemented what we learned in the classrooms, the theoretical part. We got an opportunity to convert the theoretical part into practical thing. That's where we learned more, because previously we had an exposure to the MATLAB and the Simulink thing, to
Yes.
learn more about that. So when I entered to that DRDO research lab, I got more exposure from and guidance from the scientist, and we understood the old systems and we implemented it practically.
Okay, okay, that's great. Now I would like to talk about something that I think is genuinely one of the most exciting part of your journey, and that most people have never heard of. You are an analog astronaut. So for anyone listening to this podcast who does not know that what happens during this analog mission, if you can explain that in first, and then tell us what will be or what is the selection process, or the experience that actually involved during these missions.
Yeah, Shruti. Analog astronaut training is like a very important section in my particular journey. I can say it's very important. It's have made more impact in my life as well. So as I told you, like I was very enthusiastic to understand what actually analog astronauts do. What is analog astronaut? I know what is astronauts, and but who are astronauts? But I'm very enthusiastic to who is analog astronaut and what they will actually do in the incubation centers and that particular simulations under that. So yeah, I applied for the analog astronaut training center in the Poland, in the Krakow city. So Dr. Maria, her surname is so difficult to tell, from Poland. So she, she's a guide there, and she's also in a professor in the Poland University, and she guided with the, like, she initially took an interview for us. So it's basically like a crew, as we know that in ISS, International Space Stations, how astronauts not alone, there'll be a crew. So same as that, in incubation also we need a crew to work on for our missions. There will be different kinds of mission. If you have any idea, like if you have any research area particularly in your field that can be applicable in the microgravity and the space kind of research, you can take your old research data or old research, the setup to the Poland for that center in the incubation, and you actually work on there as you working on the ISS. Like it feels same as that, because the incubation is the same and the old routine is the same. So yeah, that's where first I got an interview call, and then I gave my interview after some days, and I got selected. And then my visa process and some, the old process started to happen. And I think it's in the year of 2024, I can say. So it's all started, and I got ready for the mission, and I got ready with the, pre training sessions will be there. So I went under that, and what are the do's and don'ts we should do on the centers, and what are the schedule which will be like. And I got the food schedule also, food menu for that, because Western food is, European food is like it's very different from Indian food. So that's where I got to know that it's very difficult to stay without Indian food, because we Indians eat so much spicy food, but they don't eat spicy food, because it's also a part of that schedule, because astronaut should eat this much of grams of food in the missions also. So that's also plays a very important role in the astronaut life, so in the during missions. So that's where the food schedule also very tight for us. We should eat only these grams of food and only this particular food for our missions. And we should check particularly every each and every however we should check our body temperature and our body conditions, and we should complete some challenges, like running. And inside that particular incubations, we should check our daily movements of our body and all. I think this is the same thing where astronauts do in the ISS also. So this is how tracking was happening. And along with that, we as I told you, we had another project called plant, how to grow the plants in the microgravity level, with the many different, I think that as you are a biologist, with
The
many
nutrient media we
chemicals.
use to grow. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So with there will be particular machines like spectrography to check that movements and the grow of. It
Mhm.
was very, the wonderful experience that we also been in the missions, and we are seeing that plants also growing with us in the missions. And there will be like different crews. Like one is three members of two members are from Poland itself, and another one is from border of the Germany. So we have four members, four girls in that particular crew. And they were so nice to me, and we learned so many things, because sometimes we'll be having schedule like today we should do this, and today since I'm a commander, I'm in a charge of commander, like I'll be deciding we should do in the command. So another crew had another like biologist role, and another crew have some pilot role. So these are the main important roles that we are being in that particular mission. We played in that particular missions. So after that, so there will be like we participated in of the we collected all the informations, and we tracked our daily basis, and we learned so many things there. And the main thing is like EVA suit. The EVA suit itself, it's like extravehicular activity suit. You know that what actually astronauts wears. So that's called EVA suit. So we had an opportunity to wear that particular EVA suits, so that we can see like how we can move and make our body movements to that particular suit. So this is where like I learned about the more about the analog astronaut. So that's very important to be an analog astronaut before you become an astronaut, so I can say that. Because you need to understand the incubation first before you jump into the space, because you need to understand what are the circumstances that will affect yourself. Maybe it can be mentally, or maybe it can be physically on ground in a particular space like ISS. Then you should move into the virginal, like the real space. So that's where it actually very important to be an analog astronaut. First to you should move into the analog and astronaut. So yeah, this is how was the journey. And at last, after we we solved many challenges there also, like we solved one Italian challenge, and we all also featured in the Italian space magazine.
Oh,
So that
that's
was
great.
very nice. Yeah, that was very nice experience that also we had. Yeah, yeah, this is all about my missions there.
Thank you, thank you, Prakriti, for sharing this incredible experience that you have. And I do believe that how you work with people under such pressure, it really matters as much as what you know previously. And I think this is one of the most important thing that people outside the space industry do not realize, that astronaut selection and space mission designing is as much important as how human behavior as it is, and even with the technical skills. So analog missions are a really great platform to experience that, to train you for the bigger missions itself. So I would really love to, yeah, if you can share any funny or any memorable stories or during your missions.
Yeah, yeah,
I
Shruti,
think
I
you
have so many
are like
stories to share with you.
all women crew,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Actually, it was so much fun. And language, and they are actually good friends to me now also,
Uh-huh.
because they'll be in touch with me since till now, and they're very good to me. So the another thing is like not funny, but it's like a very serious moment that since Poland is near to that places, like war is happening every time there, like in a series. So there is a power issue, power outrage happened to us, like there is no power till 12 to 13 hours for us during the missions. So we all so afraid of that, because in that particular mission only you four people are there. So near to your place there is nobody, so that is how mission will happens there. So that was very crazy moment at that point. And yeah, this is how one serious moment happened with me, that war was happening. And you got a issue for the power. And yeah, I was like, when something will fall upon our center, and what will happen to that center. So this is one serious moment that I had. And another adventurous thing I can say, like that was my first plane journey, that too international journey. And I was very alone to do that adventure alone, because you need to run from one boarding point to another boarding point for the international immigration chamber will be there. So yeah, that was very serious experience in my life. That yeah, it was all useful, I can say. The whole mission is so wonderful and so useful, and it was very informative, and I learned so many things from that. So yeah, this is how was my mission.
I do agree that these are, through these small challenges, we do get and understand, or probably we are prepared for, coming life challenges, be it traveling solo, be it dealing with energy. Cut. And I think this is kind of a challenge that astronauts even face in space station, when it comes to communication gap and communication delays thing. So it's nice. At the same time, it is really hectic and physically and mentally exhausting at the same time, but you do get to prepare for all these challenges during the simulations mission. So yes, kudos to you that you you deal with it and you come at very stronger after that. uh,
Yeah. Ashruti.
Right. And now I would really want to have like a honest conversation, the kind
Mhm.
that is useful for students who are about to, make decisions about their future. So, aerospace engineering in India, what is the real picture? Not the just the inspiring version, but what is genuinely hard about building a career in this field, and what is inspiring or what is helpful for those students who are dreaming to take their decision to pursue aerospace engineering in India.
So yeah, when it comes to aerospace engineering in India, even I didn't do the aerospace engineering. When I started to, wanted to do that aerospace engineering, one of my senior, she told me that no, this is not a particular, perfect area in India. You should not do this aerospace engineering, because I did aerospace engineering. I'm working different field now. In software, I'm working in a section, so you should not take aerospace. You can go with some other courses. So where I changed my decision to some other courses. When I was wanted to become a aerospace engineer, that was very unfair to me, to that my senior told me that no, it's not a particular period, or India is not for aerospace engineering. So then when I entered to other brands, and then started to work on that with the same hardwares, and like it was all same, like mechanical, aerospace, like it's a bit particular field where you learn same thing but with different systems. So that's how I can say. But now I'm working on a aerospace field. So that was one regret to me, that regret in my life, that I didn't do aerospace engineering. But it's okay that for coming upcoming aerospace engineers who are willing to do aerospace engineering, I can say it's very, very very much booming area now in India, and it's creating revolution in India, that aerospace engineering jobs, I can say. So you should, if you want to become an aerospace engineer, you should do that. So it's a particular, it's a perfect time and perfect course to willing make you to willing to work in the aerospace systems. So yeah, you can easily take the course, and you can confidently do the course, and you have an if you have a willingness to complete the course, and you could just complete the course, and you would definitely get the jobs in aerospace field. Because so many startups are starting on aerospace systems. You can see every day I'm getting updates like this startup, particularly from the aerospace, is showcased his capability in that particular systems and this particular system. So it's growing, it's booming. So yeah, I think it's very particular, perfect particular area and timing now to choose the aerospace field.
Yeah, I do agree with you that in these recent years, if we consider this last 2, 3 years, I think Indian space sector is really making a very incredible progress. Even government is helping the industries, the startups. There are different initiatives that they push startups to develop new technologies, and they bring in more the empowerment of students uh, in the sector itself. That's really nice. And for students who are sitting somewhere in India, and now we know that aerospace engineering is one of the pathway which even Indian aerospace sector needs now. And right now, what who wants to build in this direction, what is the the real pathway, or what do they actually need to develop as a part of skill, and how to pursue this career and make a good progress in this industry?
Yes, yes, Shruti. That's very important, question that you should ask me to, make students to understand more about what is aerospace actually, and what are the skills that students should learn from their, engineering college itself, to be fit into the aerospace jobs. So particularly I can say that please learn the particularly I can say that please learn the codings. So codings is also very important thing, because embedded C and C++, Python or Java related codes you should learn. And the second thing is like you should understand the system first. Theoretically you should know about the system that you will work on. For particularly if you are if you want to willing to join the engine team, you should know the engine front to end. So like what are the factors that affect the engine's faults, and what are the sections in the particular engine parts, and if we dive deep into that engine, the like compressor will come, and different there is, it's a deep concept. So you should understand the concept first about the aerospace to get the job in the aerospace field first. So that's the main important skill that you should learn, is to understand the systems, aerospace systems. That's very important. And next is the tools. For example, CAD tools, you should learn about the CAD tools, because you need to view the systems through your software to check its reactions and its dimensions, its diameter, or whatever that particular length or with. To understand the particular systems, you need to learn about the CAD to recreate the same system in your software. And other than that, you should learn MATLAB and Simulink. That's very very important to to develop the codes or to develop the laws in the particular aerospace system. So please learn the MATLAB and Simulink. That's very very important things. And XCOS, if you don't want to choose the MATLAB, you can directly jump into XCOS. So that's also very powerful tool now. So CAD, MATLAB, Simulink, XCOS, and understanding the basics fundamentals is very important, because without fundamentals you cannot do anything in the aerospace field. So understanding the fundamentals and understanding the concepts of the aerospace is very important, of the systems. So according to that, you have to learn, and you should be capable of writing the algorithms. So that's the important thing. And so yeah, these are all the skills that you should need to have before you jump into aerospace jobs.
Yeah, I must say to all those students, do not wait until you feel ready. You learn it by doing it. The skills that you shared, Prakriti, is really important when anyone, any student who really want to jump in the industry and start working on real missions, they need to have this foundational skills and foundational theoretical knowledge to so that they bring in more innovation in our industry itself. So here is something I ask because I know parents are also listening to this podcast. So a family in Karnataka say their daughter loves engineering and really wants to go into aerospace industry, but they are really worried: is it the job is stable? Is there a future or not? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I know these feelings actually, because the parents like, oh no, it's not a booming area, why are you taking that course to work on this field? If you want to do aerospace job, you should do it in the abroad, you should jump into abroad to do this job. So no, now don't do that. Now it's not a correct time to jump into abroad to do the aerospace jobs, because most importantly, aerospace comes under defense sectors. Aerospace and aeronautical sectors comes under defense sectors. Like only like the particular country side I mean country defense sections capable of allowing only particular citizens, their own country citizens, to work on their defense systems. So if you jump into different country, and it will take so many years to you to jump into their particular aerospace jobs, because there will be restriction for the citizens. So that's the important thing that you should understand before jumping anywhere for the aerospace jobs. So yeah, that's the one thing. And now, as I told you, there is a huge support from government for these fields and for the startups of the in the aerospace. So you should focus on developing the systems in the India itself, because it's a booming and it's giving many opportunities. Whether you can learn many things here, like a hands-on experience you can get in the aerospace jobs here.
Definitely. Definitely. I think the question is not whether the industry will go. The question is whether we are prepared as the next
Yes.
generation for the industry. And
Yes.
this shift is really essential for Indian space industry right now, because
Yes.
I think we should be able to change the conversation, like, is it safe,
Hmm.
to how do we prepare for this industry? I think that would be a real conversation for that.
Yes, yes, Shruti.
So, and again, if you could tell that 15-year-old version, so let me reframe this question. So, consider you have this a huge experience and nice experience in this industry for now. So, if you could, tell the 15-year version of yourself who is just like discovering that she is interested in engineering or this aviation field or aerospace field, so one thing that you know now, what would it be, and what would you tell her to how should she should move ahead?
Yeah, Shruti, it's very nice question that I can go back and tell my 15-year-old self that no, you can do that. You already got a job in aerospace and you are solving very real problems in the realistic problems in the space field. So yeah, you are going good. So don't worry too much. Learn whatever don't just distract yourself from other technologies. Learn what you actually want to become. So yeah, that's what, because it's very important to tell you that, because if a student from 15-year-old is concentrated to do the engineering work, if already committed that I should do engineering work, otherwise if he committed that I should do medical work, so you should be concentrating on particular field of work, because you can't just distract yourself that okay, I will learn engineering work course that see the physics mathematics that I will learn now, so I'll also concentrate on biology. So your field biology. So no, if you want to work on particular, like as you know, like biology physics also integrating nowadays for chemistry, biochemistry is very booming area also, that is also fine. But if you are really actually want to do engineering work, you should mostly concentrate on mathematics, physics. So yeah, I can say that you should understand the primary basic funda from that period itself.
Yeah, I
To
do.
mm,
I'll
mm.
agree with you that, follow what you already follow, and the direction is already inside you. So what you can do is just focus on that and pursue the same direction until you are expert in that.
Yes, yes, Shruti.
Yeah. So with this, I really want to, understand, because I think human story behind the engineering is what really moves people nowadays, and it inspires people as well. So you are doing remarkable things at a very young age, but remarkable things always come with a cost. What has been the hardest part of this journey till now that nobody sees in those Instagram posts that you share?
Yes, Shruti. Yeah, that's true that successful journey should also have some hardships in that, because without that there is no fun of success that you are enjoying now. So for in my journey, I can say that the language barriers, because I can proudly say that I studied in my regional medium for now. So then I jumped into the English medium and I started to learn things in English in different way. So I started to understand the things in English concepts, English language. So that's where I can say, so it's an initial barrier, it's just an initial barrier that I faced during my initial days, the language barrier, I can say. So after that, I didn't face much barrier, I can say, because I always trusted, I'm the person who trusted without hard work nothing will gonna happen. So this is my initial motto, and today, till today also, it's my motto: if you don't do hard work, you won't get any penny, or you won't get anything in your field. So that's where I had a motto, and I worked many, late nights, I can say. If you want to, sometimes the systems will give you, errors, and you should sit and debug the system to make it work on your side. So late nights also done. So yeah, these are the main barriers that I faced. I also went under some huge, health issues meanwhile while doing this. So I just came back from that particular health, the biggest health issue that happened to me, and then I went to Poland. I can proudly say that I just, got up from my medical problem, and I just made another milestone to reach the Poland through this mission.
This is incredible, I think, Prakriti. Working alongside your doubts and not eliminating it, but you work on it, you clear your path, and you achieve that success is really inspiring. And this is what even our life tell us to move ahead, to move forward. Because the doubt is the proof that you care enough about what you are building in that journey, and to be afraid of getting it wrong, it's not the issue, but you should move ahead, you should move forward, and
Yes,
that's what
yes,
it is important.
yes, yes,
And
yes. That's true.
this is what our, space shastra question is as well. So, the name shastra, it means both as a weapon or as a form of knowledge in Sanskrit as well. So, if we pronounce it shastra, then it's like a weapon, and it also relates to DRDOs and all this technical research, and it also means the knowledge. So, what is your Shastra, the one principle that has guided everything you have built so far?
Yeah, yeah, Shruti, as I told you before, that hard work is the main important, motto in my life. Along with that, I can say never give up attitude. So yeah, that's the main principal things that I can say. Those are real shastra, astra weapon in my life.
Thank you. Now, I think we have come to the end of our interview, and I really want to have, some fun rounds after, this heavy questions. So I would really want you to, be prepared for a rapid fire round if you are okay. Just go with your first thought, no overthinking. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Okay. First question, UAV or spacecraft? If you could only work on one of the part, rest for your career.
Spacecraft.
Okay, that's great. DRDO or private space startup? What do you learn? Where do you learn more?
Private startups.
Okay, that's interesting. Most underrated engineering skill that no one talks about.
Learning fundamentals.
Okay. One tool or software every aerospace engineering student must learn right now.
MATLAB, Simulink,
Uh-huh.
CAD.
That's great. That's very essential, I will say. And biggest myth about being an astronaut, be it analog or real.
They will die once they reach the space, and they'll never come back.
Oh my God, this is real. Couldn't
That's so
agree
real.
more. Okay. What does your family think what you do at work?
They'll think that I'll do a mechanic work for an aircraft. I'll repair that aircraft, airplanes and all.
Okay, that's interesting to know. One space mission you want to be a part of in your a lifetime.
I want to, go to Mars.
Okay.
That's the mission that I'm always enthusiastic to be
Okay.
part of.
Right. I am also Team Mars. I would
Martians.
really, yes, yes. I would really, I had my dream of sending my own experiments on Martian surface and see how the life adapts there. And, because I am inspired from Star Trek. So, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
One word for Indian aerospace right now.
it's booming.
Okay. And one word for where it will be in 10 years.
Own Indian astronauts will be there in the ISS with own Indian ISS center
Oh, that's great.
station.
Yes, definitely. And the last thing you read or watched about space.
About space, the Apollo missions.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, thank you so much for answering this rapid fire questions, Prakriti. We end every Space Shastra episode with the same way. So, if every student, every parent, or every young woman watching this right now could only remember one thing from this entire conversation, what do you want that one thing could be?
Yes. Don't ever try to give up on your goals. You'll always work on that, and it always work out at the end. So please be on the track and do hard work.
Oh, sure. And I think I would also like to ask one similar kind of question. So finally, so this is like directly to the person who is listening right now. Maybe it is a girl in Karnataka who just discovered she love how machine works. Maybe it is a student who want to go into aerospace industry but has never met anyone who look like them in the field. Maybe it is a parent who is not sure whether to support their children for this unconventional dream. What do you say to that person directly?
Just then don't just panic that why did I choose this field and nothing is working out in my field currently, so I'm just stuck here, so nothing is happening. Don't do that. Like, don't get that panics at the starting. Just trust the process. That I can say, just trust the process. You'll get your fruit at the end. And your parents also should have some patience, because aerospace is not just a simple area. So it will take a year, or it's more than a year, or it's take a months for you to reach your goal in a particular aerospace field. So you should have a patience and sit back, work, and take your fruit at the end.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I think, Prakriti, what you are building technically or personally, I must say that this is exactly the kind of work that changed what the next generation believe is possible for them. Especially when they are dreaming about to step in this industry. And that is the whole point of Space Shastra, not to celebrate what has already been built, but to make visible the people who are building right now, because they know the real challenges. They know they have been through that journey. And this new generation is really they want to inspire people. They want to aware the next generation, so that young girl somewhere watch this or think, if she is doing that, I can do that too. So because you really can. This is not like inspiration, but this is like a fact, because we all are working in the industry. So through our guidance or through our mentorship, they can really follow along that and even reach to a bigger heights than us in future, definitely. So thank you so much for having this conversation with us. It's really inspiring and motivating. One last thing is, what do you want to say about She in Space, the initiative itself?
Yeah, Shruti, I actually appreciate that something like this initiative is started in India itself, because I've seen, as I told you, like women in technology, and this are initiative from the Google. So I'm very happy that that girl started this initiative, and she's motivating and guiding the young minds all over the India to be in track and to achieve their goals in the aerospace field. That's very very happy for me, since I'm in this field, so I know how it feels to be in this field and how to motivate people in this field. So that's very fantastic job that you're doing. And She in Space, it's really a good platform for the young minds who are really seeking for the guidance currently to start their career or start their studies on this field. So this field is very the perfect fit for those young minds.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words, Prakriti. It really means a lot, and we do, work towards the betterment of space industry. Make sure that we aware the people first, and make sure that we provide this platform where students or young professional can connect with the real space experts, so that they know how industry work, what are the challenges the scientist or the professional face in real life and during their journey, and then they can get inspired and take decisions accordingly. So thank you so much once again. So
Thank you so much, Shruti, for this opportunity. I'm very
thank you.
grateful for that. I have been in this field, in this platform to, share my experience, my words here.
Sure. So hey everyone, if this conversation sparks something in you, share it, send it to young women in your life who is figuring out her path. Send it to the parent who is not sure whether to say yes to their children's dream, or send it to the student who need to see that someone like them is already doing it. And if you want mentorship, real guidance, and real communication inside the aerospace and space industry, She in Space is where you come. The link is in description. We are building this for you, and do follow Prakriti Prakash. Her actually the account name is Astro Prags. So I'll definitely share all the links below. So if you want, if what she shared today moves you, or go deeper, you can get a chance to have even one-on-one mentorship from her with us as well. So follow her work, follow her journey. She is one of the people who is building India's aerospace future in real time. So this is Space Shastra presented by She in Space. Until next time, stay curious, and always remember the path builds under your feet as you walk in. So thank you so much for having this conversation, Prakriti.